What is going on, MafiaChee Live, and welcome back to the channel. Boy, it feels good to say that after a pretty long break. Sorry I disappeared, but I needed a bit of time away from YouTube to just kind of relax a bit over the summer. But I'm back, and I'm here to talk about Payday 3. Because in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the top 10 features that I think Payday 3 needs to have when it releases in roughly 2 years' time. But before I get into the video, as I've said already, thank you all so much for 25,000 subscribers. I really do appreciate it. But to celebrate it, I am going to be doing a Q&A. I said I would do it for 20k and never did, so I'm doing it now for 25,000 subscribers. So if there's anything you want to know about me, my Payday content, my channel, my Twitch, anything at all, leave the questions down below in the comment section. Ideally mark them with something like "this is for the Q&A" so I can spot it in the comment section, but leave those comments down below and I'll be recording that video within the next week or two. But either way, enough rambling and introductions from me. Let's get right into the video and talk about the top 10 features that Payday 3 should have. And as always, let's kick it off by rolling the intro. So like I said in the intro, the idea here is to cover 10 key features that Payday 3 should have, but this list is not exhaustive. There are some things I wrote down that didn't make it into this list, and there are no doubt some things you guys want to see in Payday 3 that I won't have even thought about. So what I'd like to do down the line is include the last few ideas I have, as well as incorporate some viewer suggestions. So if there are any things you'd like to see in Payday 3 that you don't see discussed in this video, leave them in the comment section down below. But of course, make sure you watch the video first to make sure I don't talk about the thing you want. But let's kick off with point number 1. I don't think I need to explain this one in too much detail because the clue is pretty much in the name. We need equality on the console versions of Payday 3. Ever since Payday 2 first released in 2013, the console versions have always been dealt the short straw. Xbox 360 and PS3 only got 3 DLC updates and were left in the dust. Xbox One and PS4 got a lot of the DLC, at least pre-Silk Road campaign, but a lot of free content and of course the Silk Road campaign onwards is still completely missing from the game, so at this point now the console version is beginning to feel a bit more archaic again, and Nintendo Switch, well, yeah, that's not had an update since it came out 3 years ago, so I don't really expect anything to change there either. Point being, Payday 2 could have had a lot better response and handling on consoles. I've done videos breaking down why it didn't work the way it should have done previously on the channel. Feel free to check those out if you're interested. But the point I'm trying to make is that Payday 3 needs to fix this going forward. Payday 3 is already confirmed to be coming out on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. It hasn't specified which console generations after that, but it is being developed on Unreal Engine 4 with a pretty big budget behind it and quite a large development team. 3 things which improve on the mistakes they made with Payday 2. The engine in particular allows for better porting of content between different platforms, which stops Overkill from having to develop things from the ground up and deal with as many platform exclusive bugs, hopefully. So it should be very feasible that any update that releases for Payday 3 post-launch should easily come out on all platforms at the same time. And I mean, let's face it, if it doesn't, Overkill have got some questions to answer because they can't do this again. They just can't. They know it, we know it. It's gotta be perfect this time round. This is something I've done a video on separately, so I don't need to talk about it very much. You can go watch the Crossplay video if you're interested. I did a much more in-depth analysis of this particular point. But because I did a video on it, it feels like it's appropriate to just mention it in this list because it was something very important to me and still is now. I have friends who play Payday on console and on PC myself personally, so I would love to be able to have Crossplay to play with both of those at the same time. But generally, I just think it'd be a very nice thing for a community which has historically been so very fragmented because of the problems on console. It'd be a lovely thing if going forward, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC all got updates at the same time, and at the same time could also join lobbies with each other, playing these new heists, playing as new characters, playing as whatever gets added into the game in post-launch content, or even just in the base game. There are a lot of games these days now like Call of Duty that have really pushed the crossplay front, and it's been so fun to be able to mix with people on different platforms, get to play games with friends I would have never normally been able to because of the platform limitations. It's something that's becoming more common in games, and I really hope Payday 3 takes it in its stride and adds crossplay to their game. Mass customization has always been a pretty cool thing in Payday 2, but I think we've all got to admit that that system is a little bit out of date now. When Payday 2 launched in 2013, it came with a very cool mask customization system that allowed you to get different masks from completing heists or achievements, applying patterns you unlock to them, and also picking the color schemes. It was something very cool at the start of the game, but as more masks were added and as time passed, the cracks in Payday 2's mask customization system began to show. There are a lot of masks they've released since the game first came out that are not just face masks. You've got helmets, big meme masks, all sorts of things that don't fit the conventional shape of masks, and when you apply any of their base game patterns to them, they look a mess. And if they somehow don't, when you apply the colors, they look even worse. It was a really cool system when it came out, but it is definitely outdated now, so what I'd like to see is an overhaul to the mask customization system. And what I'm thinking in my head, and this might just be me and you guys can offer better suggestions if you have one, but I'm thinking personally of the old Call of Duty emblem editor, where you'd be able to take any kind of pattern that was available in the base game or through challenges, apply as many as you want onto your gun in different places, with different colors, at different sizes, rotations, all that good stuff, and make a gun camo that was truly unique to you. Apply that to Payday 3, pick a mask, have your patterns, put them on in whatever places you want, paint the mask a color, or a gradient color, or a pattern color, and then also add individual colors for all the things you add on. Make it truly unique to every person so that the masks do feel like you're having a bit more of a say in how things are arranged, because I really don't make them much anymore. I don't like the system as much as I should. So yeah, better mask customization is a pretty big thing for me in Payday 3. I think it's safe to say with how popular Payday 2 is and the hype for Payday 3 that there will definitely be some jobs returning from Payday 2 in Payday 3 in some kind of classic job capacity. Payday 2 managed to put every single Payday the Heist mission into Payday 2 on PC. Consoles don't have no mercy, but they've got everything else. Basically allowing you to play all of the old heists in the newer game, progress Payday 2 using those old heists, get to play them for nostalgia, all that good stuff. And it was a really good system to add. It meant that you only had to go back to Payday the Heist just to play that style of game with that kind of progression if you felt like it. You never had to boot up the game again to play a heist that you missed because they were all in Payday 2. Now it goes without saying though, with Payday 3 they're not just going to put every Payday 2 mission over. We know how many missions there are in Payday 2. They're not going to port those all over to Payday 3. It's just not going to happen. But by that same token, I do see quite a few heists coming over as classic jobs, and again, this is something that I've talked about in a previous video. Link is on screen now if you want to check it out. So while I can't tell you for sure which jobs will come over because I haven't got a clue, I do think it's very, very safe to assume that heists from Payday 2 will make their way into Payday 3, whether it's only a few, whether it's a dozen, whether it's something in between, I can't tell you, but I think it's safe to say there will definitely be some jobs coming back because people will want that sense of nostalgia from Payday 2 whilst also offering something new. Speaking of which, one of the big things that I've wanted in Payday 3 for a very long time is more locations. And it's something that Payday 2 is beginning to do now, and I really hope they don't push it too far. I don't want them to ruin locations for Payday 3, because in the Silk Road campaign, we went to Mexico. In the City of Gold campaign, we're going to San Francisco. We're starting to spread a bit more outside of Washington, D.C. for a more permanent basis rather than the occasional trip to Florida for counterfeit. In my personal opinion, in Payday 3, I would like to see heists that take place in different countries, in different cities across the world. Go to the UK, go to Japan, go to France, go to Spain, go to wherever that fits the heist you're trying to do, mix it up, and also have different police units for that specific country. Kind of like what they've done with the Federales in Mexico for the Silk Road heists. I personally would like Payday 3 to have a bit more of a globe-trotting feel where you're not just doing loads of missions in Washington and the occasional one a bit further away in America. I'd like it to feel like the Payday gang has more of a global outreach and will go to all these different countries to get whatever score they want without travel ever being a problem. It would make the game feel a lot bigger in my opinion, and make it feel a bit more expansive and like there's more going on in Payday 3 than there is in Payday 2, because there's a lot of jobs in Payday 2 in America. I'd like to see us go somewhere different at least some of the time. This next point isn't so much something that I want to see change as much as something that I'd like to see stay relatively similar. I've said this in previous videos, but Payday 2's skill system, in my opinion, is one of the best skill systems in any video game at all. Again, it's down to personal preference, but there's something so beautiful to me about being able to play as any character, have any combination of skills, with any guns, as well as the ability to change any of those things at any time without there being much impact on your progression. But the skill system in particular, giving you all the different abilities and different perks that all blend together, you can pick whichever combination that you like to fit your playstyle, as well as being able to make several different profiles you can switch between at the snap of the fingers. It's a really beautiful system, and I want to see something like that make its way into Payday 3. The only thing I'd like to see possibly change is make a few less skills that people feel almost forced to get. Overkill have done works to prevent this in the past with specialized killing, but there have been certain skills where it's kind of assumed that most builds need them, and if you don't have them, it's a little bit jarring. The one that comes to mind for me immediately is Inspire. I would personally like to see that all the skills are unique, but also none stand out too much above the others as ones you have to get. So basically what I'm trying to say is keep Payday 2's skill system, but make it a bit more updated with more skills and also less standout ones, so that you can just pick whatever you want without then feeling like you're at some kind of disadvantage if you don't get certain skills in the options. The pre-planning system was something that was added quite early in Payday 2's life cycle, and it is easily one of the best things about this game. Being able to choose how you go into a heist, how you escape, what assets will be waiting for you inside the mission, whether you can turn people to help you with certain stealth playthroughs or loud playthroughs. It's a system that is absolutely fantastic, but it hasn't always been used as well as it could or really should have done. There are a number of heists in Payday 2 that still don't use the pre-planning system, but beyond that there are also some heists that don't make use of the assets. You can just literally put down doctor bags and ammo bags, and that's about it. So for Payday 3, 3, I would very much like to see them make some kind of pre-planning system again, where you choose your entry point, you choose what assets you can have in there, really fiddle around with how the heist will go to suit your own playstyle and what you want the heist to be, but more importantly, those options are consistent with every other heist in the game. You can pick whatever options you want in every single heist, with obviously unique opportunities for every single job, but make it feel like you have a say in every single one. Because sometimes the pre-planning tries to mask a little bit that there is only really one way to do an objective. You can't choose your entry, you can't choose your escape. I'd like to see there be a whole host of options in every single heist, making it more consistent with every job in Payday 3. I don't think I need to remind anyone how many weapons there actually are in Payday 2, but one issue people tend to have with Payday 2's weapon system is that most classes run on a damage pool ammo count system. In other words, there are typically 3 tiers in every weapon class for what kind of weapon you're going to be going in with. High damage and lower ammo count, lower damage and higher ammo count, and then somewhere in between. But over the course of the last year or so of updates, Overkill have added the occasional gun into the game that breaks this formula, and it's been really refreshing to see something new be added to the weapon system that doesn't just conform to the old guns and act like a reskin. I know there's the argument to be made that DLC guns shouldn't be inherently better than anything else you can get in the game for free. That is true, but at the same time, you can make the stats different enough so they're not a reskin, but also not necessarily completely OP to the point where it is unfair if you don't buy the DLC. There's a middle ground to be found there, and I don't think Overkill have done very well with that in the past, but it seems like they are trying now in Payday 2's life cycle to try and fix that a little bit towards the end of its life. So in Payday 3, what I'd like to see personally is none of these damage pools. I would like to see as many guns as possible be unique. Of course, if Payday 3 has nearly as many guns as Payday 2, you're going to get overlaps. That's not something you can avoid. There will be some guns that share similar stats. But I'd like to see as many guns as possible be unique, have unique statistics, or at least something that makes them stand out above the rest. I know I've compared to Call of Duty already, but if you open up Black Ops Cold War and have a look at the assault rifles, for instance, one gun will say this is the best in class fire rate, the next one will say this is the best in class damage. So in Payday 2, you could say, oh, this assault rifle is the best one for concealment, and then you go, right, okay, this is the one I'm going to take into stealth. Like I said, I know there's a little bit of this already, but it doesn't feel strong enough or unique enough, and so I want to see the stats be more varied to basically encourage you to try every single gun and see what fits, because there's a lot of guns in this game that I still haven't really had much time with because I've not cared to, because there's always been better guns or ones that I prefer using. I want to break that mindset and have some real variety in the game. Speaking of weapons, one thing that needs a dire rework is the Payday 2 melee system. There's about 6 or 7 pages now of melee weapons that add really no real difference to your playthrough. I know they have different stats in damage and knockback and things, but it's pretty much just variations of a theme. And the only melee weapons I really use now are the electric brass knuckles or the buzzer, because they allow you to stun enemies and then get them to surrender as hostages so you can convert them or just have hostages in the game. The melee weapons are not unique enough in this game to warrant their existence. They just aren't. They're purely cosmetic, and while it's okay to an extent, there are too many of them. So what I'd like to see Overkill do is either A, reduce the amount of melee weapons and have just a few that are purely cosmetic and don't change too much, or ideally, and this is what I'd rather have an array of melee weapons but have them each be unique. Vary the stats, have some of the longer or sharper swords be really high in damage so that it's worth carrying them. Have some of the larger blunt weapons actually knock cops out for a few seconds, or just generally make them stand out a lot more than just a little bit of a shunt. Basically just make the melee weapons actually do something useful rather than just be this extra thing you have to pick in your loadout but doesn't really make a great deal of difference. There is definitely work that could be done there to make melee weapons more unique. With the amount of melee weapons there are in Payday 2 now, I think it's too late to change it for that game, but I do think they could hit the ground running with something better in Payday 3. As my final feature for this video's list of things I want to see in Payday 3, I'd like to talk about a more definitive story. When Payday 2 first launched, it didn't really have a great deal of a story. It had the web series, which kind of tied into the games and also kind of didn't, because it was left on a really weird cliffhanger that didn't make a great deal of sense. But you did get the idea there was some kind of narrative, that each heist that was added was following on from the next one, and that things were going in some kind of direction. But it was only in the last year and a half of Payday 2's main life cycle leading up to the White House that we actually got an interesting story that was building up and taking us to this big terminus that people were actually getting excited for, which culminated with the Payday 2 secret, which was something you could do to get a new special ending for the game that casual players wouldn't have a clue about. So what I'd like to see personally is that kind of story level existing from the get-go in Payday 3. Tease heists and characters and all sorts of extra story additions that are going to be happening in the game right from the start. Tease things, make you look forward to what's coming next for the game. I know it's not the best example in the world because people don't really play this game anymore, but it worked for my explanation, so roll with it. But with the Avengers game right now, they're teasing that at some point in the future there's going to be a Kree invasion, invasion. It's going to be this big story event that you can look forward to in a future content drop. And each of the story campaigns they're adding in the game are building up towards that point. I'd like to see something like that in Payday 3 where they're adding these heists and they're saying, right, at some point we're going to get to this big heist. Kind of like what they did in the web series of Payday 2 where Bane said he was training them for the greatest heist of all, but make it a bit more plain than that. Don't just mention it once in a web series and then not talk about it for 5 years. Give us an actual interesting definitive story that connects from point to point with every heist in Payday 3 and subsequently every heist added afterwards. The base game doesn't have to have some big 10-hour solo campaign. I'm not asking for that. I just want things to be a bit more connected and actually feel like you're going from point A to point B right through the game rather than just in the last few years of support. But there you have it, folks. That is my top 10 features I think Payday 3 should have when it launches in 2023. As I said earlier, this is not an exhaustive list and there are things I could have talked about that I haven't in this video. So if you'd like to see another one of these, make sure you leave a thumbs up on the video to let me know you've enjoyed it and you'd like to see more, and make sure you leave a comment down below for things you'd like to see in Payday 3 that you didn't hear me talk about in this video. Additionally, make sure you get asking your Q&A questions in the comment section below as well, so I can answer as many of those as possible in that upcoming video. But that'll about do it for today, so thank you all very much for watching. I do greatly appreciate it. If you have enjoyed the video, as I've said, give it a thumbs up. It shows me you enjoyed this content and would like to see more. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. It's quick, it's free, and I'll always love you for doing so. To everyone supporting me financially as channel members, thank you very much for that, as well as my patrons. There is a big Patreon overhaul coming very soon where it's going to get a bit of a redecoration, so look forward to that. There's going to be some new tiers, some new rewards. It's getting pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to dropping that very soon. But either way, thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all next time with a brand new video. So until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching.